What's up everyone, how are we doing? Welcome back to the channel. Now today I'm going to break down or discuss one of the oldest myths in the fight game, okay? Fighters generally, I find, are a superstitious bunch. You know, they're always looking for a way to give them a mental edge, to get ahead in life. And if they're no stranger to making sacrifices either. A fighter will do whatever it takes to win that fight. Being victorious on the day of the fight, the night of the fight, comes above everything else, right? So that's why sometimes they can be a little superstitious. You know, there's many superstitions. Like one of my old mates, Paul Kelly. You know, I used to train with him. He fought in the UFC, great fighter. He had what he called his lucky shorts. And he would drive. One night, he was fighting in Liverpool, but he drove over on a Friday night, 90 minutes to my house just to get his shorts. I said, what are you doing, mate? I said, you're fighting in the morning? He's like, yeah, no, lad, I need my fucking shorts. You know what I mean? Can't fight without my lucky shorts, lad. And I'm like, all right, whatever. Do you know what I mean? Gave me shorts. But it's not just him. There's many fighters, you know. And it's not because we're weak. It's because the fight means so much to us that we will do whatever it takes. I mean, Georges St-Pierre, there's a great example. He had half the bloody UFC roster convinced that tweaking their nipples walking into a octagon was a good idea. In fact, Rashad Evans was on the Joe Rogan podcast a while ago and he was talking about that. He said, you know, before a fight, obviously you get nervous and there's a lot on the line, there's a lot of consequences. And he would, you know, feel the nerves. So he would go out there and tweak his nipples because he thought, if I tweak my nipples in front of the world, nothing can be more embarrassing than that. And then that would kind of eradicate a bit of the pressure. I'm not sure if I agree with that one. I would say lying face down on a canvas is a little more embarrassing. I've been there myself, so I'm talking from experience. But listen, one superstition that has been around forever, right, I'm going to get to in a second because you don't understand. Fighting is such a crazy sport. It's so exciting. And as we know, one shot can change everything. You zigged when you should have zagged. You two'd when you should have throwed. You bobbed when you should have weaved. And you shagged when you shouldn't. And that's what I'm talking about. Sex before a fight. Should you do it? Should you have it? Does it affect your performance? Because a lot of people believe that it does. I've spoken to many fighters that abstain, that stay away, that don't get their leg over. Okay? Heard from many coaches that think it. And just recently, Jake Paul was talking about it. As we know, Jake had a tremendous knockout over Tyron Woodley at the weekend. Terrible fight. Awful fight, one of the worst fights I've ever seen, but tremendous knockout, so fair play to him. And leading up to that, he talked about how he abstains and he doesn't like to have sex because he wants to give himself the best possible chance of winning. And his trainer, BJ Flores, was on there as well. And he said, listen, he comes in sometimes and he spars, and maybe he doesn't look as sharp, maybe not as fast, not as powerful, not as aggressive. He'll say, hey, did you have sex last night? And he's like, yeah, I did. He said, well, there you go. There's why.
It's different for each fighter, but a lot of fighters are affected by it, including myself.
You know, even Rocky, remember the Rocky movies? I love those, by the way. Stallone did such a great job of portraying the emotions that fighters go through, the ups and the downs, the highs and the lows. But his trainer, Mickey, was like, women, weaken legs, Rock. I can't do a fucking Mickey, but you know what I mean. He said, stay away. Don't be fooling around, Rock. Yeah, good old Mickey.
Women, weaken legs.
Yeah, look, listen, the Rocky movie started in 1976, but this theory has been around way before then. For centuries, thousands of years, all the way back on ancient battlefields, they always believed that staying away from sex would build the testosterone in your body, and therefore you would be a better fighter, a better warrior, a better samurai, bro. The ancient Roman researcher Galen, considered the father of modern medicine, by the way, said that you could recognize the world-class fighter by his, I quote, collapsed penis and weathered testicles. And he meant all fighters, not just those that had fought in Pride FC, if you know what I'm saying. Other writers of the ancient world, and yes, I do study writers from the ancient world in my spare time. It's how I like to live my life. But still, they said similar things. They said, sex makes warriors less aggressive, less willing to take risks in fights, and less willing to fight in the first place. And this line of thinking considered all the way through to the Victorian times, where there was a movement in athletics called the Vitologists. And the Vitologists preached that every time a male athlete had an orgasm, he lost some of his life force And even still, in some boxing trainers, right, a variation of that idea that athletes have only a fixed amount of energy and they better not waste it. And that has been used to try and get some boxers back in the day to not spar as much, to not do as much road work and whatever, because you only get so much energy. Your life force, you can't spend it. You gotta fucking train, spend it, use that life force. All right, look, listen, I was a professional fighter. In fact, at one point, I had the most wins in the UFC than any other human being that ever existed in the history of the UFC. So I know a little thing about this subject, believe it or not. Now, I'm not gonna sit here and go into details about my sex life with my wife, but I can give you a little story, okay? February 2016, I was fighting Anderson Silva at the O2 Arena in London. And on the day of the weigh-ins, my wife flew in.
No one wants to hear about this stuff.
Babe, what are you doing? Listen, I'm not discussing our sex life. I'm not.
True.
Yeah, listen, she flew in day of the weigh-ins. She was there day of the fight. And I'm not saying we had sex because I don't want to get slapped in the face. But we probably did. Okay, in fact, we did, and it's great. You know, of course it's great, but what I mean is it's a great distraction from the fight. And actual science backs it up and says that the more times you release, the more times you climax, it actually helps to increase testosterone levels in you. And on the day of the fight, you're trying to do whatever you can to not think about the fight, okay? You don't want that nervous energy. Coaches always say, look, listen, don't think about the fight. Think about anything else. Go for a walk, do this, do that, read a book, take a nap. Take a nap, they say. Oh, yeah, I'm going to nap. I'm about to step into a cage with one of the best fighters in the world. I'll just fucking take a nap. As you get more experience, you can take a nap. But you see what I'm saying? Right? You've fought of this day for 3 months. You've trained your ass off for months and months and months, right? You've push yourself to the absolute limit. You've done the press conferences. You've spoken to hundreds of journalists. Now you're there. You just weighed in. And in a few hours, you're going to step in front of an octagon, into an octagon in front of 20,000 people and fight one of the best martial artists on the planet. It's hard to not think about that. Okay. And I'm just saying that having a little distraction will take your mind off that and probably put you to sleep, because we all love a little nap afterwards, don't we? Never did me any harm. But going back to the original point, what I said, for Jake Paul, you know, it's a placebo thing. And a lot of fighters believe in that. They believe if they give themselves, if they do everything they could, if they push themselves to the limit, if they make every little sacrifice and in their mind it's the right thing, then hey, God bless, because the mind controls everything. When I worked with a sports psychologist, visualization was a huge thing, okay? Like I would, in my mind, close my eyes, envision the walk, envision the crowd. When I was sparring, I would sometimes try and play my walkout music, right? And I'd have my opponent opposite me in the octagon, and I'd stand here, I'd close my eyes. I'd imagine Dana White and Sean Shelby and those people, Lorenzo Fertitta down at the bottom, the crowd, the judges, you know, and like, because when you've been there mentally many times in your mind, when you get there on the night, you're not as nervous, you're not as tense about the situation because you've been there before. And certainly if you've got your leg over earlier that day, then hey, there you go. Look, listen, just a few thoughts for you there. I'm not saying there's right or wrong to it, just giving my experiences. But still, there you go. Hope you liked the video. Do me a favor, subscribe, ring the bell, all that good stuff.